Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Thursday, all of our guests today sponsored by Passant Motors. That includes Bob Stauffer, standing by. It's May Days at Passant, and they want to make sure you love your ride. Check them out at BassantMotors.com, BASANTMotors.com, and find a ride, a sweet ride, that you will love. Oilers lose 6-3 in Game 1 of the NHL's Western Conference Final. Here to talk about that and all matters National Hockey League. Edmonton Oilers analyst, host of Oilers Now on 880 CHED. Works for Sportsnet as well. He works for everybody. Bob Stauffer, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Gentlemen, how are you guys doing?
Very well. Very well. What were you thinking after 2 periods last night, and what were you thinking after the 3rd period?
I said to Jack Michaels as we went to break at the end of the second period, right at the start of the second intermission, I said Edmonton has to get through this kill to start the third period. I mean, it's a remarkable story. Last year, Edmonton was 94% killing penalties in the playoffs, and in fact, when you factored in their shorthanded goals for, I think they ended up at like 97.7, like almost even. That's so good. And Dallas went 0 for 14 in last year's series against Edmonton. Stars power play, it's almost reversed. Edmonton's been the better. Last year, Dallas came into the series the better 5-on-5 team. Edmonton obviously had the great power play and excellent penalty killing. And this year, their power play has been, by their standards, pedestrian. And their penalty killing's now at 62%. I think you guys know that's not a recipe for success. And they had to get a kill, and they didn't get a kill. They didn't get a shot block on the 3-2 goal, either Janmark or Nurse. In my opinion, one of those two guys should be able to front that puck. It wasn't like it was a rocket. Maybe a little bit unlucky on the 3-3 goal, right? Like that's a short side shot, roof job through. Wallman took away the lower half of the net. And then the 4-3 one, they just outbattled the Oilers in front and completely flipped the game. So I thought Edmonton had a real good game, 5-on-5, and poor job in the PK. Stay out of the box. I'm not going to – the 4 penalties were the 4 penalties. They're penalties. You got to be disciplined, and Dallas has been running hot special teams, and so they're up 1-0 in the series. Now, this is not uncommon for the Oilers. Yeah. In the Chris Knoblauch era over the last 2 years, Edmonton guys are now 7-12 in games 1 through 3.
Wow.
And they're 16-2 in games 4 through 7. One of those losses was to Vancouver last year in Game 5.
Oh, yes.
But, so there you go. I mean, the Oilers have tended to make some adjustments and gotten better in series as they've gone on, but against a team of the caliber of Dallas, they need a win tomorrow night.
You had to throw in that reminder of the Canucks Oilers playoff series, and we appreciate that. Bob.
I have another one for you. Do you want?
Go. Hit us.
So, it's funny because, there's some people, well, you were gifted from the gods, and there's a degree of truth to like getting McDavid and frankly Draisaitl. The Oilers have 8 playoff series victories in the last 4 years. Okay? Mm-hmm. Do you know how many times the Vancouver Canucks have had 8 series wins in a 4-year span?
Go.
Never.
Oh, Bob, thanks for joining us.
No, but I want you guys to think about how good Vancouver was during the I love the Sedins, class act guys in the early 2010s. They had really good teams. That's how hard it is to win, right? Like Vancouver went to the final, obviously in 2011, probably should have won it. But they had really good teams before and after those years as well. The Canucks have never had a 4-year window where they've had 8 playoff series victories, and the Oilers have got 8 and are around 3 right now. It just reinforces to me how difficult it is to win.
You know what else the Canucks have never had? Wayne Gretzky or Connor McDavid.
Yes.
And that's a 100% fair comment. But Don, there was a time where the two Sedins were seen as like they were back-to-back. Were they not back-to-back MVPs?
Maybe should have been, but weren't. Henrik won in 2010, the Hart, and then I think Daniel finished as a runner-up to Corey Perry in 2011, if I'm not mistaken.
Corey Perry, eh?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Who's now in Edmonton.
Yes.
You got him, too. Hey, is there something obvious wrong with the Oilers' PK versus last year in the playoffs?
Who needs to be your best penalty killer?
Goalie.
There you go. Got to stop pucks. And I hate to be that guy. Skinner had two real good starts back to back, but the team played really well in front of him. They last year they had Matthias Ekholm. He's their best penalty killing defenseman, and they've not had him. I mean, if not for Stan Bowman going out and getting Klingberg and Wallman, there's no way they would have survived the Ekholm injury. And I do expect him back at some point in the series, but he's their best penalty killing defenseman. And so, the loss of Ekholm, I think, has hurt their PK. And then you got to have, I think the team's save percentage on the penalty kill is 765. That ain't going to cut it. They scored they had 48 seconds of offensive zone time on those 3 goals last night. Can't happen. It's got to be better. So they gotta fix that. But one of the ways is to limit the power play opportunities the opposition has. They've got to be a little bit more disciplined.
Hey, Bob, I want to ask you about a former Canuck, Vasily Podkolzin. He's done some good things in the playoffs, we've noticed here in Vancouver. Talk a little bit about him.
Well, my understanding was he was a physically mature kid, right?
Yep.
And was sort of ahead of his age. Look, he made the play that won the game in overtime for Edmonton in Game 5 with sort of a relentless pursuit of the puck. And and then last night, if you recall the third goal, he was a one-man forecheck. I actually think they need to play him more. I think he's got I do think there's some more offense that will come. Some of your viewers will sit there and say, well, Stauffer, come on, man. Like, he's playing with Draisaitl, and he had really pedestrian numbers this year, but he just needed to establish himself a bit. Don't forget, there was a year in which Valeri Nichushkin did not score in 58 games in the NHL, and he's a pretty good top 6 player now. The players love Podkolzin. Draisaitl loves him because he works hard. He's physical. He's not elite offensively, but at this stage, maybe there's more coming in time. First one on the ice in practice. And so the players have got him. He's been a good fit. It was a subtle addition. It was in theory partially to offset, the decision to let Broberg and Holloway, with St. Louis to go. They basically replaced Broberg with Jake Wallman. In the short term, they've replaced Holloway with Podkolzin and bought a little cap space. He's been fine as an Oiler. Frankly, he's been better than I thought he was going to be when the Oilers made the trade.
Yeah. Another guy, Evander Kane, he's done some good stuff, and he didn't play a ton of hockey this year, as you know, Bob. But how has Kane been in the playoffs? He was a big guy last year for you guys.
He was, Dolly, he was unreal in 22. I'm here to tell you right now that if Evander Kane had been healthy against the Florida Panthers, that's a 7-game series. It's a 1-bound series.
Yep.
That wasn't he was, by the time they played Dallas last year in round 3, he had no juice left. He was totally compromised. You could see he was injured. They cut him to 15 minutes a game in that series. He ended up, I think, with 1 assist -3, and you could tell he was hurting. And he's at a better place right now. He'd probably like the play back on the Duchesne high stick. It was a penalty, but he's been pretty good. And you know what? He has been a killer against the LA Kings. For whatever reason, he lights them up. And I think, the Oilers were the least physical team in the NHL in regular season, you guys. They had the fewest hits in the league. But they get Kane, they get Frederick, Zach Hyman. Zach Hyman has more goals as an Oiler in the playoffs than any of the 4 core Maple Leaf players have in their time in Toronto.
Wow.
And some of those guys have been there 9 years. Zach's been 4 years at Edmonton, but Hyman's leading the playoffs in hits, and then you have Kane, and then you have Frederick, and you have an antagonist like Perry. The Oilers have a physical dimension they didn't have in the regular season, and Kane's part of that.
Well, one more, Bob. Speaking of ex-Canucks, Troy Stecher. In your opinion, how is he playing for the Edmonton squad?
The year you guys went, the Canucks went to round 2 there. They won the play-in series. They won another series. Stecher, the best plus-minus on the team. He gives you everything that he's got, right? I like players that play hard, firm, and direct. That's how he plays. He's helped Darnell Nurse 5-on-5. When I used to plant trees up in northern BC back in the day, Donnie and Dolly, and I'd be listening to Dan Russell late at night. I used to sometimes go, geez, I think these people down on the West Coast, maybe some of them see the game the same way I do, and some of them don't. But we used to make jokes about there was a difference between the kids that were from places like Ashcroft, BC, and Prince George, and the kids that were from West Van. I'm not saying that because that's where my family lives now. But, with Stetch is just an honest, hard-working player. And he came in Game 4 in Vegas, and the Oilers, when they just roll those three pairings, Stetcher with Darnell Nurse, that's the guy that Darnell plays the best with. And that's because Stetcher is assertive, he's hard, he's direct, and he's simple. And they're a pretty good tandem when they're playing. Now, Ekholm's going to come back at some point during the series. Maybe that boxes Stetcher out, but he gives you what he's got, and he's an honest player. And the players have an immense. I mean, that's a guy that punches above his weight class. And he took a puck off the face in practice on Saturday, and I thought I would get him in the teeth or the nose. He was leaking everywhere. I was pleased to see he didn't have the bubble on in practice, but he's been a rock solid player when he's been in the playoffs.
Bob, you know what? You had us with the fact that you worked in northern BC, just like Rick and I. You paid your dues.
Yes.
The young kids don't know about this.
I love North. Now, whereabouts were you guys?
I was in Dawson Creek. Rick claims that he was in Fort St. John.
Fort St. John, 4 years. Beautiful people up there, Bob.
I was in Fort St. John in '87. I watched the Oilers win the Cup in Wells, BC in 1990. I was just on with Jeremy Roenick telling him about that, about how great Messi was. I all through there. And then from 94 to 98, I worked for a company, a guy named Crawford Young, and it was called Silverado. And we were all like along Highway 16 up in northern BC. Beautiful, all the way into Chilcotins, where they filmed the greatest Canadian movie ever made, The Sweet Hereafter, Adam McGowan. So
gosh.
There you go. Awesome stuff.
Bob, thanks so much for this. Appreciate it. And thanks for the memories of northern BC.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yes. I will be calling you guys shortly for our show as well. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right, Bob. Thanks.
Bob. Appreciate it.